Hello, Star Trek fans. Welcome to ReBinge It. This is the ReBinge Star Trek Voyager podcast. My name is Kim.
And my name is James.
And we are rebinging Star Trek Voyager from the beginning, one episode at a time. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are on Season 2, Episode 12, Resistance. This episode aired November 27th, 1995. Before we talk about this one, do you have anything to say about last week's episode, which was Maneuvers?
No, it was perfect.
To be completely transparent, my notes say it's the one with Seska and that idiot Chakotay. I'm so sorry.
It's good that Seska's chosen this time to start a family in the Delta Quadrant. It's a big step for her.
That was a weird Star Trek maneuver, I have to say.
Absolutely. It really was where is this coming from?
Yeah. Somebody really was watching soap operas in the 90s.
Oh, clearly that's it. They've got half the actors from the soap operas appearing on the show.
Yeah.
I will say, when you see the word resistance and Star Trek, isn't the first thing you think of is futile.
It's futile.
Yeah.
It can't be helped.
It's ingrained.
Mm-hmm. Don't be a Borg.
Good advice at any time.
Yes. All right, you have the notes this week, so over to you.
Okay. We open with Neelix leaving a shady-looking establishment, and we know it's a shady establishment because when the guy opens the door, they, look outside, check both ways to see if anybody is watching. And
Neelix looks all over, trying to be nonchalant. He looks up at the sky.
So either it's some kind of shady establishment or it's a store dealing with specialist adult material.
Everyone in this scene is being so just outlandishly ridiculous instead of trying to be, discreet.
Yes. Well, we also see that Neelix is back to wearing his big furry coat, which I really hope has been dry cleaned since the desert planet home of the Acampa.
Ew.
Listeners can't see this, but Kim is making quite a face at this.
I can smell it.
Waiting in a bustling square is Janeway, B'Elanna, and Tuvok. She scans a container Neelix gives her, and it appears they are making a deal for whatever is in the vial.
B'Elanna's badge is completely visible in this scene. Again, we are not being discreet.
I will comment on that in a few moments.
Okay.
Neelix goes back to complete the deal, but they're interrupted as some guys clad all in black wearing motorcycle helmets turn up. So we know these must be the bad guys.
Absolutely.
As the team tries to leave, they run into yet more of the guys in black and a fight ensues. Janeway gets hit by a phaser and goes down, but Tuvok and B'Elanna are surrounded and outgunned. They're taken prisoner. As one of the guys in black takes Janeway's communicator, a civilian rushes him, shouting, "Get away from her," and pushes the soldier away, leaving the injured Janeway on the ground. And into the opening credits. Well, that was quite an opening.
Yes, I have many things to say. Well, I have one thing to say.
Oh, okay, go.
This jacket that Janeway is wearing is so freaking cool. It has that really cool collar with the sort of black around the back of it because it's a little stand-up collar. It has almost like a military look to it.
Yeah.
But it really reminded me when you get a bigger look at it, not just at the collar, it was that sort of Ralph Lauren equestrian look.
Oh.
And this was, mid-90s, right? And I think that started with Ralph Lauren way back even before the 80s. I'm not sure, but it got so huge late into the 90s and into the early 2000s. And I mean, she looks amazing in that jacket.
Well, you can clearly see they spring for costumes for the star.
Oh, yeah.
Now, you mentioned the fact they're openly wearing the badge, and I think there's a reason for this. If you look at the square, there are several other races. So I assume Janeway wearing these badges and things, it wouldn't be out of place. People might think it's just jewelry or an accessory or something.
But Tuvok's was hidden, so that made me think they were trying to hide it, and B'Elanna just wasn't doing a good job because her jacket was kind of open.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, this was a good opening. I mean, Neelix in his fur coat, a gunfight with a leather fetish biker gang. It's all in here.
Yes.
Now on Voyager, we see something's not quite right as we're in engineering and the lighting has all been set to low. Through Harry, we learn they are running low on tellerium, and the ship's antimatter reaction rate is running at only 12%. If it drops to 9, they won't be able to reinitialize the nacelles. And they're already running on minimum power. Fortunately, Neelix now calls, telling Chakotay the rest of the team has been taken by the Mokra, but he got the tellerium. They beam him straight to engineering, and Harry feeds the tellerium into the reactor. And it works. The ship starts powering up as the reaction rate increases.
Harry was looking quite worried.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we ever talk about this again? This particular problem?
I do not believe so.
Okay, because it sounds pretty bad.
Right. I mean, how long does this tellerium last? Do they need to keep a stock of it on hand? Or maybe this is, you normally don't need it because it's at every starbase. And the amount that they bought is enough to last a significant length of time.
Okay.
And I did like Harry's little helper here who actually removes the panel. And the guy appears to get a line, but he's off screen. So does he still only get scale or does he get paid for that?
Well, it could have been anybody's voice. I hope they paid him.
Neelix now relays what happened to the team to Chakotay. And he goes on to say how his contact on the planet is part of the Alsuria resistance. Harry now says they're ready to try the engines, and we get a cool short sequence of the TNG-style warp core lighting up as Harry announces warp engines are back online. And everybody seems pretty happy.
This is one of the very few times where Neelix is incredibly helpful, and he's not even annoying in this episode.
I would say this is probably the best Neelix has been since the start of the show. I mean, he's been a little bit helpful. You know, he's given some background and info on aliens, but in this episode, he really actually shows he is useful and has contacts and can do deals like this.
Yep.
Now on the bridge, Chakotay orders Tom to take Voyager from behind the moon. And they've been hiding behind a moon again.
So classic Star Trek. I will never, no matter how many times somebody tries to explain it to me, I will never understand how we can hide behind a moon.
You know, they'd be really stuck if some alien species or race or whatever put some kind of satellite around their moon looking at the far side.
But somehow we can scan things that, you know, are thousands of light years away. We can see where ships are, but because it's only when it's necessary for the story, but somehow we can hide behind a moon. I don't get it. I mean, that's not unique to this show.
It's because of the density of the moon. They can't scan through it. Chakotay now asks Neelix about the Mokra, who he describes as paranoid and hostile and having little use of diplomacy. So this is basically like 99% of races in the Delta Quadrant? I mean, we call the Gamma Quadrant the Quadrant of Jerks. The Delta Quadrant might actually be worse.
Yeah, it might be. But there was a whole thing going on in the Gamma Quadrant with the Dominion.
Yeah.
You know, they were sort of scaring everybody and causing chaos. And this is different. Everybody here, it's more like the Wild Wild West, which again takes it back to be more like the original series.
Gosh. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is very much like that. There isn't a Federation equivalent. It is the Wild West, the original part of the idea for the show.
It's not that different how Neelix describes the Mokra really from the Romulans. I mean, the Romulans were also paranoid and not interested in diplomacy. But obviously the Romulans were a little bit more technically advanced, but similar, and outfits are similar.
They have better haircuts, though.
That's true.
Well, Voyager is immediately picked up by the planet's sensor network and are hailed by Third Magistrate Orgris of the Mokra Order. There's a little bit of back and forth when Chakotay asks about crew members being detained, and he just says, I'll look into it and get back to you.
He's like, you obviously didn't know our rules. Here's a copy of them.
Yes. And can you imagine, it's probably like a giant...
It's big, yeah, it's big.
I think I'd describe this guy as quietly menacing. He's probably one of the better villains we've had.
Yeah, he's very good, and the way he speaks is quite distinctive, and I recognized him right away as a Romulan. I think he played a Romulan more than once, I'm not sure, but at the very least, where I remembered him from was the Romulan at the end of Data's Day.
Oh, the defecting one.
Because he's he still looks a bit like him,
Yeah.
but, the voice is quite distinctive.
Yeah, as we go through this episode, I think it's kind of funny because he almost like checks off the list of what you need for a good villain.
Oh, yeah. If he had a mustache, he'd be twirling it.
Right.
That actor, by the way, Alan Scarf, he just died very recently.
Oh. Well, after Orgris ends the transmission, Chakotay follows the classic Starfleet line, telling Neelix, if there's any chance they can find a diplomatic solution, he'll have to pursue it. And this makes sense. This is, I thought, very much the Starfleet line, and it's good to see Chakotay taking that approach.
Yes.
So maybe Janeway is rubbing off on him a little. No comment?
Not enough.
And we get a quick shot of Tuvok and B'Elanna being held in a cell. They don't know what happened to the captain or if they got the tellerium.
Yeah, B'Elanna here is being, oh my God, the captain's probably dead. We're going to die. Everything's terrible. And Tuvok is like, we don't have any evidence that the captain's dead. It's just as likely she got beamed up to Voyager. And B'Elanna says something like, I guess this is the Vulcan way of saying, look on the bright side. I did like this conversation.
Yeah. I think it did, again, highlight the real difference between Tuvok and B'Elanna. In some ways, it's kind of funny because these two are almost the polar opposites when it comes to emotions. So actually pairing them together like this is quite a good idea.
Yeah, exactly.
Although, don't you think Tuvok is going to be like calling the guard and going, can I possibly get a separate cell here? I was having a nice meditation and there's just constant emotional outbursts.
Yes, this cell is too emotional.
Janeway now awakens lying in a cot. There's a very strange small man who's been tending to her neck wound. He's acting very familiar, offering her food and drink, and he seems quite concerned about her well-being. He tells her everything will be all right now and kisses her hand, saying, "My little girl is home."
Oh, no.
And do we get a Janeway maneuver here?
I don't think so. I mean, she's lying down.
Yeah.
Her eyes do sort of go up, but normally the Janeway maneuver is, oh my God, I want to strangle you. But I think really what she's doing here is like, oh no.
Yeah. I wasn't sure. I will take that as it was a, oh, what now? Rather than a, why am I surrounded by idiots?
Aren't things bad enough? Now I got this guy. This is a real classic Star Trek alien on a different planet, a house.
Yeah.
Don't any aliens have normal houses with kitchens? Do they always they just have like mud bowls and rocks? I don't understand why the aliens are always there in rags.
Yes. Aliens always live in hovels and wear rags.
It's so strange.
Or leather fetish gear. There's no in between.
No in between.
It's now morning, and Janeway is groggy, but she's standing. She thanks the guy, and he calls her Raklana. Janeway tells him who she is, but he doesn't take it seriously, saying he loves his daughter's stories.
Yeah.
She asks to use his comms equipment, but the Mokra don't allow this. She then asks about what happened to the others, and eventually learns they've all been taken to the prison. And he really wants to make her some soup. And I feel Janeway's missing out here.
Because, take the soup.
Yeah. I mean, a good soup is definitely worth going to another planet for.
Kate Mulgrew is really good in this scene.
Yes. Well,
she's good at showing how much pain she's in. She's also being relatively patient with this guy, but you get the sense that she's feeling a bit manic about what's happening and, what happened to the crew.
Right.
Yeah, she's really good.
Yeah. She's really giving this sense of she's being very patient with this guy, but she absolutely wants to move on. She is a person of action, and this is slowing down things, but she doesn't want to be rude or disrespectful to this guy who helped her.
Yeah, of course. And you haven't mentioned that this character is played by Joel Grey, an extremely famous actor. And we've gone sort of, again, back to the Star Trek roots of having a really strong actor playing a character role. And he's good. I would say that his best stuff is still to come yet in this episode, but it is funny to see Joel Grey in this role.
But he's really laying down the groundwork for who this character is.
For what comes later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Janeway's insistent that she wants to head off to the prison, and this guy wants to go with her. But he tells her, you need to eat and rest first. They'll leave soon enough. They don't want to keep her waiting. Janeway asks who, and the guy tells her, not to worry, we'll get her out. You'll see your mother again. and
Oh,
hugs
no.
Janeway. Oh, and the look on Janeway's face.
Yep.
Priceless.
She's like, I feel bad for this guy, but oh my God.
Yeah. Back to Voyager orbiting the planet, and Chakotay is now meeting with Orgris and a henchman. And they're clearly the bad guys because they're all black outfits. And they've got like leather and some belts and buckles.
And black gloves.
Pretty classic. Oh, yes, right.
You know they're bad guys if they're wearing black gloves.
Orgris cautions Chakotay that some of his colleagues don't want to deal with disreputable ships, and goes on to explain that Voyager has been making more enemies than friends since they arrived from the Alpha Quadrant.
He's not wrong.
Even saying that some people consider that a lie too. But he tells him he doesn't believe those stories, and very ominously says he's here to help.
Yeah, sure. I do like Chakotay's like, oh, but not you. You don't believe that.
Yeah.
He's like, of course not.
Yeah.
I'm here to help. Sure.
In Star Trek, anytime a guy dressed like that says he's here to help, he's not here to help.
That's just true in real life, too.
Orgris also refuses to let Chakotay talk to B'Elanna and Tuvok, unless he tells him more about why they were there and who they've been dealing with. Chakotay won't tell him anything until after he talks to his crewmates. And another classic line from Orgris, "You're not making it very easy for me to help you."
Mm-hmm.
Oh. He leaves telling Chakotay he'll see what he can arrange, but it might take some time.
Mm-hmm.
This guy has got villaining down. He's just read the brief. He just does this perfectly. And he's hitting all the right notes here. And I like how he's remaining very calm. Like you say, his voice, the way he speaks, he's remaining very even-keeled.
Those are the scariest villains, I think.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
After he leaves, Chakotay tells Neelix he's not just going to sit around, telling him to get back in touch with his contact. He wants an alternative to waiting for this guy. Now in the cells, Orgris is questioning Tuvok, telling him he knows he's helping the subversives, and he wants names. B'Elanna tells him they don't know anything about the Resistance. And the chief villain replies, I've heard that many times from many people. And I think now we know this guy definitely needs to die.
Yeah, because he is absolutely torturing everyone.
Yeah.
They're sort of playing up the Nazi
Oh, yeah.
in him.
This is very reminiscent of the Cardassians, too. But I guess on a smaller scale, because it's only one planet.
Well, it reminds me of Schindler's List.
Oh.
Is what it reminds me of.
Yeah.
Sorry to go that way, but...
Right. Orgris now orders his thugs to take Tuvok away, and B'Elanna is ready to fight her way out like a good Klingon, but Tuvok orders her to stand down, and they take him away.
Now, did the cosplayer in you notice B'Elanna's boots?
Oh, I didn't.
Really? I'm shocked.
Okay, I'm going to have to go back and watch Boots.
You need to go back and see the boots. You really see them again, maybe a better shot of them later, but the boots are definitely something. She's one of the few characters that they seem to dress well out of uniform, at least so far in Voyager. Because, I mean, we've seen some ridiculously awful outfits, right? On Chakotay, I think that was in the last episode, but they seem to dress her pretty well, and she's got these cool boots. I can't believe you didn't notice them. Oh, gosh,
I didn't. I will go back and watch that. Because Kim knows I have a thing about boots. And Kim actually has a funny picture of me talking to another cosplayer where the two of us are actually discussing boots and where we got them from.
Yes.
I'm not the only person who really likes good cosplay boots.
No, it is a big cosplay conversation.
Janeway is now looking out the window of the hovel and can hear a commotion outside. The strange guy who thinks he's her dad comes back telling her soldiers are searching the whole area. But he tells her not to worry. When the soldiers arrive, they'll be gone. And he goes to a little storage chest saying, your mother will want some of her things. And he lifts out a dress.
Yeah, she probably doesn't want that.
Yeah. Janeway tells him he doesn't have to get involved, but he just replies, if my priceless girl is involved, then I am too. And he takes out a small necklace, putting it on Janeway, saying, she liked to wear this, but only on special occasions.
This is when she's got that look on her face like, oh no, how did I get into this mess?
Right. Janeway asks about the prison, and we learn it's heavily guarded. The Mokra actually make a big show of it, saying how no one has ever escaped. Janeway tells him it's too dangerous, he has to stay. But he replies, if I stay here, I can't bring her the letters. And he tells Janeway how they used to write to her together every week since she's gone, and he's never forgotten. Janeway asks how long it's been, but he doesn't know, and he gets upset because he can't find the last letter he wrote just days before. And he says he'll write it again, but his hand is shaking, and he asks Janeway to do it for her, so it has nice handwriting. But she insists she needs to leave before the soldiers come. The strange old guy sits down and starts talking about the last letter. He tells her how it was a cold morning, and his wife would worry about him not wearing a sweater, and how an old building their daughter played in as a child had been torn down, how it rained for 3 days, and he doesn't know if she can see the sky where they're keeping her. But his memory is failing, and he can't remember all the things, and it's upsetting him. Janeway very tenderly touches his shoulder, saying, "It's all right. She'll understand." Oh,
another really good scene, and this is where I thought Joel Grey was really good. It's absolutely heartbreaking as he tells you the story, and it's just, it's even worse than what you thought.
Right. And
yeah, it's rough.
The way he plays this character who, his memory's failing, but he remembers some of the pieces of it, and it's a really good, heartfelt scene. And I think the other thing that you see in this is it's really starting to affect Janeway.
Yes, absolutely.
The old guy then pleads with Janeway to let him come with her, but Janeway says that's not possible. But before she can leave, soldiers begin bashing on the door. Fortunately, the old guy has an escape passage, and they make it out before the door is broken down. So they're going house to house, searching for Janeway, obviously.
Yeah.
How do they know Janeway's there?
Well, they knew that there was another one. They knew that they shot her,
right.
Although it doesn't make a ton of sense that Joel Grey's character was able to scare off that other soldier.
Yeah.
Maybe he'd been injured or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he just sort of shoved him off, and then later we saw that he had somehow brought Janeway back to his house. So we're not entirely sure, but I'm going to guess that other soldier was injured, but he knew there was another person.
Well,
because he took her badge.
Well, I have a little headcanon here. From what we saw in the tunnels later on, these soldiers, they're maybe not the most motivated. They're a little bit...
No, they are not. It's getting old for them. They're bored.
Yeah, they're a little bit thuggish maybe. They're not the top flight kind of troops. So when the old guy, rushed this guy and started pushing him around or whatever, he didn't have any support and was like, "Oh, I'm not going to get hurt for these guys," and just left her there, figuring, someone else can take away the body.
It could be. It's like that guy who ran away in Iron Man, right?
Yeah.
These guys are weird.
I'm not paid enough. These guys are weird. Yeah, that kind of thing. It's sort of like, oh, this is more hassle than I'm worth. Someone else can deal with this.
Yeah.
So they're not really well motivated.
I think that's fair.
Out on the street, Janeway and the old guy are trying to look inconspicuous, which just means they look even more conspicuous.
Yes.
She tries going back to the store they were visiting at the beginning. But into the square comes Ogress. The old guy calls him a monster, and Janeway has to pull him away and hide in an alleyway. And the old guy explains it was Ogress who took away his wife. Out on the street, Ogress stops the guy who was Neelix's contact, saying he's looking for a woman. And as his goons start taking him away, the old guy runs out onto the street and starts acting crazy, dancing around and in a silly voice saying he's lost his hat. The crowd starts laughing with his antics and clowning, and while the goons are distracted, the resistance guy quietly slips away. And this, again, ties back to my headcanon. They're distracted by this guy making a scene and clowning, and they just let this guy go.
Yeah,
so,
they're not invested in this.
Yeah.
No. Maybe they're all sick of Ogress.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this guy. God.
Why do I have to work with this guy?
He's so boring. All we do is stand around.
Well, his antics work, and Ogress leaves, but not before putting what looks like half a melon on the old guy's head.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like he was trying to humiliate him.
Yeah. First he stuck like a bun in his mouth to get him to shut up, and then he put a half a melon on his head. And Janeway does not like that.
No. Well, it's the way she comes out and grabs it and throws it on the ground.
Yes.
Yeah, she was not with that.
Yeah, but she also recognized that what he did was pretty brave.
Yes. Off to the cells with B'Elanna, and she's checking the ceiling to see if she can get out that way. Then we hear somebody screaming, which I assume is Tuvok.
Yeah, that unsettles her.
Yeah. Up on Voyager, they can transport to the prison, but they can't locate the away team because the cells are subterranean and the rock is too dense. Chakotay nixes the idea of beaming in a rescue party and locating the prisoners, as it's too dangerous. They need a way the Mokra won't detect, telling Harry, sounds like it's a challenge for you. Harry does like a good challenge.
Mm-hmm.
He probably wishes he had B'Elanna there to help.
Yeah.
She's an ideas woman.
Or anybody. I mean, he's on his own.
That's true. Janeway's also useful for those kind of ideas as well.
Yeah, and Tom's not helping.
Look, Tom's just the good-looking guy who drives the ship. He's not the one you go to for smart ideas.
Yeah, Tom is the eye candy.
Tom, you just sit there and look pretty.
Mm-hmm.
On the surface, Janeway is meeting up with the Resistance guy. The Mokra took their transmitter this morning, so she can't contact Voyager. He tells her getting her people out of prison is impossible. The old guy calls him a coward, and the Resistance guy reacts very badly to this, telling Janeway that he's a lunatic. His stories of brave deeds are just fantasy. But he relents, telling Janeway of the tunnels that lead into the prison. She asks for some weapons, but he wants to be paid for them. And he says he'll trade the necklace. She's not prepared to, but the crazy old guy says it's all right. And the Resistance guy arranges a meeting with a courier who'll be wearing a blue vest.
It's so funny in this scene how the two of them, they're like inches from each other's face. You know, they are so sus. Neither one of them are good at undercover.
Oh, no. Janeway and the old guy are now watching for the courier, and we learn he's 3 hours late. And the old guy starts telling a story. His wife wanted to fight. She didn't care about the risk, and she convinced him to go on a raid against the Mokra. He was set to meet her at the river, but he didn't. He couldn't. He was too afraid. She was still waiting there for him when they arrested her. He asked Janeway, please, Raklana, if you can ever forgive me. Janeway doesn't say anything and just hugs him.
I mean, you didn't leave your daughter and go off and get arrested.
Yeah.
Like the wife. So I think it's okay. But I do understand.
Well, I think the point is...
Well, he feels guilty, obviously, that he maybe could have saved her. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, exactly. That doesn't necessarily reflect what the reality of the situation is.
Right.
It seems like they have a problem with the Resistance being full of informants. Neelix actually makes a comment earlier about how they have informants and spies everywhere. So
right.
The mission could have been doomed from the start, and he's just fixated on the fact she was arrested at the river, rather than they knew exactly who she was and what they were doing.
Yeah, that's true. And I do like that Janeway doesn't waste her energy trying to talk him out of anything. Yeah. She's just okay, let's just move on.
Yeah, she's just rolling with it.
Yes.
In this scene, Joel Grey really sells telling that story about his wife. A wonderful piece of acting.
Yeah.
Out on the street, the blue vest guy arrives.
And he also looks sus.
Yes. Janeway's about to stop him, but she sees he's wearing black military boots and just hurries the old guy away, realizing it's a trap. Janeway tells crazy old guy they can't just walk into the prison without weapons. Then she sees what I assume are a couple of ladies of negotiable affection and hatches a plan.
With some extreme makeup.
Yes.
Just to make it clear, if you don't know, what that's about.
In the prison, Tuvok is thrown back in the cell and looks to have been pretty badly beaten around. Ulgris is gloating, saying he still wants answers. This was a pretty good scene. Tuvok talks about how the Vulcans can withstand certain levels of physical pain, but beyond a point, they have to endure the experience, as he puts it. I liked how B'Elanna asks him, don't you want to fight back? And Tuvok points out how they are. By refusing to give them any information, they're fighting back against Ulgris.
This is something that I think they're really good about with Tuvok. They're showing the sort of practical sides of the Vulcan theology, right?
Right.
Because, they would mostly play it for laughs with Spock, if you think about it.
Yeah.
But they don't, they do that a few times here with Tuvok, but I just like how he's just, what he said was 100% true.
Yeah.
And the thing he also said earlier to B'Elanna was just to get her to stop panicking. It's like, that's just not helping. Freaking out about everything. It's like, Janeway could be fine. You don't know.
That's a good point,
I really like the way that we get to see the sort of, I don't know, it's not necessarily the positives, but
it's the practical. It's the day-to-day, the working aspect of how you live life as a Vulcan.
Yeah, I quite like that, and I think it works really well here, offset by B'Elanna.
Oh, agreed. Like I said, these two are the opposite ends of the emotional spectrum.
I think if we look back at the first however many episodes we've seen now, like about 28, I think, I feel like Tuvok is the one getting beaten up physically the most. Most of the terrible things are happening to Harry, and we talked about him being like Miles O'Brien.
Yeah.
But I do think they're beating the crap out of Tuvok all the time. I mean, Kes beat him up, remember? A couple of episodes ago.
That's right. Kes tried to cook him, yeah.
Yeah.
All I can say, Kim, is this is one of the downsides of working with highly emotional beings.
Oh, absolutely. This is going in the podcast.
Oh, yeah. As they sit in the cell, we also see the resistance guy from earlier has now been captured too. It's been a pretty good day for Ulgris.
Yeah, Ulgris is having a good day so far.
In the prison tunnels, there are 2 guards grumbling about being stuck there, and one of them even wants to have a nap. So, as I said earlier, we've not got the cream of the crop here.
Yeah.
If they're supposed to be making such a big deal about how their prison is inescapable and is a fortress or whatever, and you've got your guards are like the F troop, I don't think you're really putting enough effort in. Well, along comes Janeway, using the Kira rescue technique she used on Lee Nallis.
Oh, must we?
She distracts the guard away with an offer of a fun time.
In the dark corner.
Yes, and as they round the corner, the old guy just clubs him. Very effective.
I did like that all she did to appear to be a sex worker was to put a scarf around her neck to cover the scar.
Well, maybe that's a cultural thing in that society, that if you are offering specialist services, you put a scarf around your neck. Or a particular color.
Or maybe it's just that they devalue women. Didn't see any women guards.
I don't think I can offer a comment on that one.
Also in this scene, Joel Gray's character said he really likes the strategy. And it's like, really? You like making your daughter bait? Good job.
Oh, I took that as he liked hitting the guard.
Sure. It's not the shining moment of this episode, let's just say that.
I think I saw that in a more positive light, but anyway. Well, Janeway gets the gun off the guard and immediately jumps into action, shooting the other guard. She's been waiting to shoot someone since they got to this hellhole. You can just tell.
100%. Yep.
Well, the old guy takes a knife off the guard, which is quite an impressive and almost Klingon-looking weapon. It's like got some kind of dual-bladed thing. It really looks, It looks the part. Janeway tells him again he can't come with her, and she steps through a disabled force field, but then immediately puts it back up, leaving him on the outside. She says she'll try to find his wife, and as she leaves, he calls her Recliner again. On Voyager, Harry has now determined the planet's sensor grid is the most sophisticated he's ever seen, and there's no way to disable it. How many of you actually really seen Harry? I mean, is he talking in relative terms here of like since they got to the Delta Quadrant, each of the planets have had sensor grids and this is the best he's seen? Or has he done a study of these things? Or is it like, I've seen 2, this is the most complex?
All 5 of them. Yeah. This is the best one.
Harry has a plan to use the deflector to send out dozens of radion beams so the Mokra won't know where they're really transporting to. And once again, we see how super flexible the deflector is. You can use it for any kind of hand-wavy Star Trek thing.
Yeah.
The rescue team is ready to go, and Harry starts sending out the beam. But just as they're about to transport, the ship is rocked. A precision hit from the surface, and the deflector is now offline. Ulgris calls, saying, "This was a hostile act. They have 85 phased ion cannons aimed at them, and Voyager has 2 minutes to withdraw." And any viewer or fan of Star Wars knows how dangerous just one ion cannon is, and they've got 85 of them.
Why give him 2 minutes? I guess you don't want to waste your bullets.
I don't think they really have 85 of them. I think it's a big bluff.
Oh, 4.
Yeah.
They've got 4 and 2 of them aren't manned.
Yeah.
Because the guards have gone off after some women.
And of the 2 working ones, the guards are having a nap on the other.
Yeah, maybe.
Janeway is now sneaking around in the prison and blows up a control panel, which shuts down the force fields to the cells. B'Elanna jumps into action, attacking the Mokra guard, and as they struggle, Tuvok just Vulcan neck pinches the guy. Very useful to have a Vulcan with you in this kind of situation.
Absolutely. I think that's the first time we've seen Tuvok do that.
Oh, didn't he use one when he was possessed?
He did, but they didn't show it. Remember? Because Kes was knocked out and they didn't know why. And then the doctor said, it looks like she was Vulcan neck pinched, and everybody looked at Tuvok.
Voyager now detects the problem with the prison shields, and Chakotay allows Tom to beam down. In the prison, it looks like all the force fields are down, and we learn the resistance guy is called Druad, and he's now free and appears to be leaving with another guy. although they're acting like they're out for a stroll.
Yeah, it's a weird scene.
Yeah, I think if you were escaping the prison of your enemy, you'd be trying to get out of there fast as possible, or you'd be trying to kill all the guards, especially if you're a resistance movement. And these people kidnapped, murdered, interrogated your friends and colleagues.
Yeah, you'd be shooting all of them.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Druad agrees to help Janeway and show her where her two crewmates are held, but they run into the old guy. She asks what he's doing here, and he tells her he'll do everything in his power to protect his only child. Aw. Up on Voyager, it's now starting to get hit with ion cannon fire from the surface, but the shields are holding. Back to the prison again, and Janeway runs into B'Elanna and Tuvok. The old guy tells her his wife's cell is just a little further. Janeway tells the other two to go back, and she's going to continue with the old guy and rescue his wife. But before they can do anything, Orgris arrives, mob-handed, with a load more goons, and he has them surrounded. And, like a good villain, he does a little bit of eulogizing, saying,
Yes.
All that time I spent looking for you, and all I had to do was wait here.
Yep.
Seriously, he's hitting 9.5 out of 10 on the villain scale. Voyager's shields are now down to 25%, and Chakotay is about to break orbit. But Harry finds an electromagnetic storm on the surface. They can shield the ship and hide in there from the targeting sensors.
Why not just hide behind the moon again?
Yeah, go and hide behind the moon. You can beam from the moon. You beamed Neelix when you were hiding behind the moon.
That's right.
Yeah. In the prison, Orgris has now graduated to full-on gloating, and we learn the old man's name is Calum. Orgris tells Janeway how every so often he goes on one of his little missions to rescue his wife, who's been dead for 12 years.
Oh.
They let him live as a reminder of how futile it is to challenge the Mokra order. And then the bombshell. Orgris says, I thought you'd learned your lesson when you lost your daughter. She'd made it into the tunnels before she was shot and killed. Orgris tells them to take the prisoners away. He's going to interrogate Janeway himself. Calum shouts no, he won't let him hurt her, and jumps up, struggling with Orgris. Meanwhile, Janeway takes out one guard as B'Elanna and Tuvok take out the others. Go Team Voyager. Orgris, struggling with Calum, finally pushes him away into the doorway, and the guards outside immediately shoot him. Janeway runs to him, and in the background, Orgris staggers back, the dagger Calum took from the guard earlier sticking out of his chest, and Orgris slowly slides to the floor, dying. The guards decide suddenly that they have somewhere better to be, and abruptly leave.
Oh, that was so funny. They're like, bye.
Okay, we're gone. And I think that ties back to the point I've been making through this.
Yes.
It seems like their thugs aren't really that invested.
Yeah, they're not loyal to that guy.
Yeah.
Didn't Orgris say something like, to the old guy, didn't he say something like, and now you got another one killed, or another woman killed, or something? Because
Yeah, another innocent woman.
Yeah, implying he was going to kill Janeway. Maybe not so innocent, but I guess Orgris doesn't know that.
You know, saying that makes things even worse. Because if Orgris says another innocent woman killed, how many innocent people has Orgris killed?
Yeah, that's a good question. What are you doing, dude?
He's just a murderer.
This scene where he goes down with a dagger in his chest and then, really dramatically dies is a bit much.
Oh, I thought it was wonderfully fitting. I thought, it maybe was a little overly dramatic, but
I think you want that for the villains. You want them to go out with a flourish, but it was sort of funny. It was very TV.
You absolutely wanted that for Orgris.
Yeah.
Like, I think from the second scene, you're like, yeah, this guy needs to die.
Oh, totally.
Janeway now holds the dying Calum's head as he says to her, he said you'd been shot. And Janeway replies, he was lying to you, father. I'm all right.
Oh.
He asks about her mother, and she just says, she's fine. She was so happy to get your letters. She leans in close to his ear and whispers, she wants you to know. She forgives you. We both do. Calum just says, you sweet girl, and dies. Well, Tom's finally arrived. I don't know where he's been during this whole thing.
Yeah, finally he shows up.
Were there any other members of the crew there? I thought there was a rescue party. I only saw Tom.
I only remember Tom, but the tunnels were narrow.
Yeah.
One person at a time.
Durad, the resistance guy, tells Janeway, everyone will know what he did today. I will make sure of that. And they beam away. On Voyager, they're back on board, and a new lieutenant who we've not seen before is at the helm. And Janeway orders them to break orbit and leave. And I felt bad for this lieutenant. She didn't even get a speaking role. She could have at least gotten an II in there.
She's not a pirate. But no, she had no lines.
So, question here. Is she Starfleet or is she Maquis?
Oh, I didn't look at her collar. I think she was Starfleet.
Yeah.
Because the Maquis have different pips.
I didn't notice. I'm going to have to go back now. I need to know.
I just remember Chakotay calling her lieutenant, but I think she just had a pip.
Yeah. Janeway is now back in uniform and Harry is giving a report on the ship's warp drive. But she seems a little distracted. Harry asks if she's okay, and Janeway just tells him she's fine. After he leaves, Janeway picks up the necklace that was Galem's wife and presses it to her cheek, and we close on Voyager, traveling through space again. The end.
Harry is just a nice person.
I know.
I really appreciated him asking if she was okay.
You know, one of the things I think I was wrong about with Voyager, from my rewatchings and my memories of it, is I always thought Harry was kind of underused. But I think to this point, maybe it happens in later seasons, but to this point, I think Harry's being used very effectively. I know there's at least one episode, which is I would put in my top 10, that would include Harry as...
that comes later, yeah. Well, I think my memory of it is that B'Elanna was my favorite character in the beginning, and then she disappears essentially later. Yeah. So I think it becomes the 7 of 9 show is maybe what happens, or maybe that's just what we remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Harry is very prominent in these episodes.
It'll be interesting to see when we get to that section of the show again, because I haven't done a full rewatch. I've watched individual episodes that I've liked, but I think you get something different when you watch it all together. Like this.
Absolutely. So yeah, it will be interesting to see what happens. Or at least to compare what happens with what we remember.
Yeah, right.
Well, do you have overanalysis?
Yes, I do. So, the Mokra. Is this a race? Or a political faction? Or an invading species or race?
Well, they all had the same nose thing.
Yeah.
So I assume they're the same race.
Yeah.
So, maybe it's just like we talk about the Nazis, right?
Yeah,
it's just the Nazis of this planet.
Right. This is just a political faction that's in power.
They're called the Mokra because they wear all black. And it's like a mocha.
Yeah. Okay. Bit of a stretch, but yeah, we'll go with that one.
A little bit of a stretch.
Next thing. So, okay. Voyager has this bad rep, right? It's like a heavily armed motorcycle gang rolling up in your neighborhood.
Taking your resources.
Yeah. Now, if they're heavily armed, have a lot of technology that outclasses you, they're extremely dangerous, I think you're taking a serious risk if you're being aggressive towards violent pirates who rock up in your solar system and just ask for some tellerium. It seems very dangerous to be confrontational with people who could potentially go, you know what, we're going to nuke every one of your cities from orbit and just take what we want.
Yeah, if you really think that they're violent, that was a bit of a crazy move.
Right.
But we can always put it down to that sort of ego, because this guy clearly thought he was in charge of everything, had everything under control.
Yeah.
And he didn't even have his own soldiers behind him, but he didn't even know that. So my guess is it's a bit of ego mixed in there.
It's a bit of the Cardassian bluster.
It's a bit of the Cardassian
type of style of, it's, paint over rust.
Yeah.
Because,
we'll show you. I mean, even their prisons were dopey. They're just like caves.
Yeah. Right. Because it would seem so crazy to not just go, oh, you want tellerium? Here's some tellerium. Tell you what, we'll give you the friends and family price on it. Please.
Yeah.
And, have a good trip when you leave. I think especially if these rumors and stories are built up. So if they turn up and they're being friendly and they're not trying to kill you, you would go, let's play this friendly, just in case. Next thing, the phased ion cannon. It seemed to be quite serious if they were taking all these hits and it was actually starting to damage Voyager. So I'm wondering, even though this is maybe a backward technology, maybe it's the volume of shots. Maybe they're getting hit a lot.
I don't know, because it seemed like after one hit, they were already down in the 60s.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
And couldn't they go and hide behind the moon and keep on popping out from behind
there's
the moon?
always been this weird consistency with the strength of alien weapons against the shields, I
guess this falls under that thing of, like the joke about who's the most powerful superhero. it's the one who needs to be most powerful for the storyline.
Totally.
It's like, how good are the Voyager defenses? Well, however good they need to be to advance the story.
There are ways, I think, to show an underpowered, I mean, they do it a bit with the Kazon, but to show sort of an underpowered race fighting against you, you know, they could be throwing up like suicide bombers at them using the other people, right? The ones that they were holding prisoner. You know what I mean? Right. They could have been doing stuff like that. That would certainly have gotten action from Voyager. But yeah, it's always hard to reconcile that. Like this, they shouldn't be more powerful. It doesn't make sense.
Right. Oh, next thing, and possibly the final point, I think we need to talk about the Prime Directive. This planet obviously has a ongoing resistance struggle, some kind of insurgency against an oppressive regime. Yeah. And Voyager is buying mineral resources from the resistance. Therefore, wouldn't that money be going to funding weapons, radio equipment, supplies, whatever, for the resistance?
Oh, 100%.
You are contributing to the political instability on this planet. You're breaking the Prime Directive.
Yeah, 100%. But obviously this was very desperate times because they couldn't have the warp engine go offline and not be able to get it back on, right? That was just the end of them. So I think it was maybe out of desperation. And Star Trek frequently just tries to make excuses for things, right? So their excuse was maybe, well, we didn't do it, Neelix did it.
Oh.
This is just his normal trade, right? We're one step removed from it. And, you know, maybe it's just this small thing that they're doing, and maybe what they traded wasn't something that they felt was valuable enough to make a big difference. I mean, they obviously have to justify it if they're in that much trouble.
Yeah.
But why not just go in and negotiate with the ones in power? Then you're not going to change the balance of power, right?
Well, I think Neelix might have covered that, if these people are paranoid. And they're not interested in
no diplomacy. With them.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they're a very sealed society. I mean, the fact that they don't want people using comms equipment talking to the outside universe.
True. Yeah, true.
They may be completely insular. It may be like North Korea.
Yeah. I'm going to say they justified it for their own survival.
Well, yeah. I think you could get around it with a needs must in this case. But strictly speaking, you know, some evil admiral at Starfleet HQ in the Ivory Tower is going to be getting upset about that.
Oh, completely. It definitely violates it. Yeah.
I mean, unless it was somebody we liked.
Right. Because we will violate the Prime Directive if we like the people. Or even just one person. That's all it takes.
And I think my final over-analysis point is, and I touched on this, why would you be using Starfleet personnel exclusively here? Why wouldn't you be sending the Marquis to do this kind of transaction? Given that some of those people in the Marquis must have done exactly this same thing on a Cardassian-occupied planet or on a Federation planet, so would have experience of conducting clandestine deals, having lookouts, looking for guards so they can do an easy evacuation, covering the exits. It seems like if you have people with that kind of experience on board, they would be the ones you would want to send down on the planet with Neelix to do this kind of deal.
Well, did you forget that B'Elanna was in the Maquis and Tuvok was in the Maquis as well? I mean, he was undercover, but he did serve in it for a long time.
Right. But did B'Elanna have experience? I think I mean experience in this kind of clandestine work.
Well, Seska's gone.
Yeah.
So...
Well, Seska would have been working with Orgris.
To me, yeah. To me, what doesn't make sense is that you didn't send Chakotay. Why would you send Janeway into something so dangerous? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, because what's the worst that can happen? You lost Chakotay, so that's a net plus.
Yeah, exactly.
Your actual management skill goes up a level.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on there. Because they didn't need Janeway to scan the little beaker. I mean, they had B'Elanna. She could have done it. So, yeah, that's my first overanalysis point is why was it Janeway?
Into your overanalysis then. I'm done.
Well, I mean, I already said it. It's like, why was it Janeway? It should have been Chakotay. Because there wasn't anybody to shoot.
Yeah, it took almost 38 minutes, I think, before Janeway got to finally shoot someone. You know, I just realized something with the shooting.
What's that?
Aren't they worried about a Federation phaser falling into the hands of the Mokra?
Yeah, I was thinking about that too, because I'm sure they were disarmed, right? So then what happened to it?
One of the Mokra took Tuvok's phaser.
I'm hoping that they're able to somehow destroy them remotely.
Oh, self-destruct.
I don't know. Yeah. Or maybe when Tom got down there, he could scan for them and he got them all back.
Right, because they have no defense against transport technology. Yeah, okay.
That's a lot of headcanon.
That's some good headcanon there, Kim.
But that's also the same thing. That's why we don't go into these situations where the Prime Directive would really matter. It's why the Prime Directive is dumb. But anyway. Okay, so yeah, that was my main point about I don't think he should have been the captain.
Yeah.
I really liked B'Elanna and Tuvok together. I thought that made a nice change of pace. We don't see that very frequently.
I would agree.
I thought that was good.
Yep.
I certainly thought all of the interactions between Joel Grey and Kate Mulgrew were amazing. I thought those scenes were really, really good.
Yeah. Those fulfilled the classic Star Trek trope, a big story told in a very small space. In the apartment, when they're out on the street, when they're in the prison, learning the background of where this guy came from, what happened to him, what happened to his family, and telling that big story. I feel it really encapsulates what happened to this planet and these people and how awful the Mokra are. And it's told on a small scale.
With some great acting.
Yes.
I thought this is something we talked about on Deep Space Nine a few times, but when Calum died and, he had his little opportunity to say his moving line and Janeway said the moving stuff to him and that kind of thing. I used to like it more before my dad died. You and I have talked about this. And it's just, that's not what happens. You don't get the opportunity to say a witty line or to give your deathbed confession. I mean, that's just not how it goes. And so I do struggle with that when they show that. And that's a really personal thing to me. But I understand why they did it. It was needed for the story. I just would rather things like that were more realistic because I just find that really painful to see things like that.
Understood.
But that's just my own personal thing. It's almost like in Titanic when the woman throws the necklace back into the water and you lost your mind. And I was like, no, it had to happen for the story. It doesn't have anything to do with what should really happen. It's just the story needed it.
History being lost.
But it's not history. It's made up. And it's kind of the same thing here. Like someone could say the same thing to me, which is like, you needed this for the story, so just get over it. But it's a very personal thing that I don't like.
Yeah, it's something you can't relate to or...
I used to be able to, but now I cannot.
Yeah.
So it's tough.
It's something that personal experience has colored your opinion on, and that's completely understandable.
I imagine it happens to a lot of people who suffer some kind of violence, and then they're forced to watch it in a movie or on TV or whatever. I'm sure it's very similar thing where it's just like, no, that's not how it is. Don't make me watch that. Then the only other thing that I have is I was surprised Janeway still had the necklace.
Really?
Yeah, because I was like, why don't you give it to the resistance people? Or why don't you maybe give it to those sex workers so maybe they can get out of that business?
Yeah.
I don't know, do something with it. But she kept it. I guess it's part of your Prime Directive story is why she had to.
Well, I feel it's because she was emotionally affected by this guy and the story. And I think as an evolved human, maybe his story and the behavior of the Mokra and what they did to him, his daughter, his wife, has a great effect on her. And that's why she's holding on to it.
I understand the nostalgia of it. I'm just saying she could have helped people with it because
I see
the guy in the Resistance was saying, hey, that's worth something.
Yeah.
So why not help somebody with it if it's truly worth something? It's not like it's worth anything really in terms of actual value to you. It's just nostalgia.
Well, I think it had a significant emotional impact.
This just comes from my mom. We're just not nostalgic about things generally. It's like, come on. What do you need that thing for? It's just another thing.
That is very true. That is very much part of your personality.
Yeah, but then I will have some stupid little teeny tiny thing that I will keep forever. But it's rarely something of any actual value.
Yeah. Okay,
so women in the future. Do we need to talk about using women as bait? I don't think so. I think I already went on that rant in whatever that episode was on Deep Space Nine.
Yep.
I get why you do it, but I don't like it. We're more evolved. Find a better solution.
Understood.
And then in Janeway's Leadership Corner, I don't actually have anything to say this week. There weren't a lot of examples of good or bad leadership. I mean, it was mostly Janeway being compassionate, right?
Yes.
More than it was about her leadership. So I don't have anything to say on that topic this week. Well, maybe one thing I could say is I do think Tuvok was showing good leadership to B'Elanna.
Oh, agreed.
Yeah. But okay, let's go to rating. Thumbs up, thumbs down, or neutral. What is your rating?
Absolute thumbs up. What a truly excellent episode. This was a very emotional episode. The acting was fantastic. It really played well. The rewatchability is great. It's thoroughly enjoyable. It's also tragic. And also it's an action episode as well. It's a great mix of Trek. On top of that, I think I got real echoes of The Inner Light with this one. In the way that Picard was affected by the events that the implanted memories, Janeway's affected by being with this guy, his story, and her compassion for him, and the connection she ends up making with him. Great Trek, absolute thumbs up, so well performed and put together. A really, just one of those episodes that's just well-rounded. I
also give it a thumbs up. I don't think I was quite as impressed as you were. I thought it was a good episode. I thought the performances were great.
Yeah.
In particular with Kate Mulgrew and Joel Grey. But I didn't find it really as moving as I think I wanted to.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure why. Maybe all the scenes with Janeway, those scenes were good and those were moving, but I don't know. I didn't feel, I guess, as emotionally moved by the episode overall, but I still give it a thumbs up.
Yeah, interesting.
I know people like to talk about Inner Light being the greatest episode of Star Trek, and I didn't even like it. So I'm moved by different things.
You and I could not be on different pages when it comes to Inner Light.
It's fine. It's just not a Star Trek episode. If I had to go back and, I don't know, I'm not sure I could remember it off the top of my head, but if I think about the episodes that made me cry my eyes out, the ending of Prodigy, that made me cry my eyes out, and it's a cartoon for crying out loud. But I certainly, my first introduction to Star Trek, which was Wrath of Khan, that's when I first cried. I definitely found that emotional. Tasha Yar's death really got me. The Visitor in Deep Space Nine. I'm not sure I've cried more ever in watching an hour of television. I am frequently moved by Star Trek, but I didn't find this particularly moving.
Interesting.
Maybe because there are parts of it that are a little silly.
Yeah. Interesting.
But still a thumbs up. I'm not trying to criticize it. It's a good episode. I don't think I would rewatch it, though. It's funny you say it's really rewatchable.
Oh.
Yeah, I almost didn't want to watch it the second time yesterday, but I did because, I take my job seriously.
Maybe it's the rewatchability because of how well the villain just gets it in the end.
I think you really like the villain is the thing that's happening here.
Yes.
And I don't blame you. He is very good. And he gets it in the end.
It'd be a really good cosplay outfit as well.
Yeah, it'd be quite hot.
Yeah.
Especially with all the heat waves going on as we go into Comic-Con.
You know that what would be a good cosplay is playing Orgris with the knife sticking out.
And the gloves and the long sleeves, that's so hot.
Oh,
that's way too hot for July.
That's going to be sweaty.
Yeah. All right, I think that wraps up Season 2, Episode 12. Come back next time for lucky number 13. In the meantime, if you'd like to send us your own overanalysis of this or any episode, maybe you want to tell us if this one moved you, you can email us at rebingeit@gmail.com. We are also on the thing that used to be called Twitter, Threads, Instagram, and YouTube, all at ReBingeeit. And you can connect with us through the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Star Trek TTM podcasts.
Thanks for joining us on the ReBinge Star Trek Voyager podcast.
That's it for me.
And that's it from me.